Hey, welcome back to Whiteboard Friday. This is Noel Coleman coming to you today to talk about data management. And this is one of those areas where it is so easy to forget about the consumer's needs in this part because it seems inherently internal. But it's also the most important place not to forget about the consumer's needs. And the reason why is because ultimately this forms the foundation for your consumer's experience on your website. And so as you begin thinking about this, one of the most important places to begin is going back to that convert video where we talked about use cases for your consumers and what questions are they asking and how are they making a decision about which physician they want to choose for their particular need. And so the first thing you want to do is ask yourself that question: do I know what my use cases are? Then from there, you can begin thinking about the data sources that you currently have, because you do obviously have a lot of different data sources internally, whether they be credentialing or call center. Some of the different things are things like School of Medicine, if you've got that, department databases, physician liaison CRMs, credentialing, patient experience data that you may have from a survey vendor. There's a lot of different places where you can get this information from. But obviously you're not going to have 100% of this information in-house. So some of it you're going to have to build and augment your profiles in your data set to be able to get the information that you really want to have. So the question becomes, what is your plan and your process for augmenting the existing data that you've got? And in this process, the goal is going to be to streamline and make your doctors' lives easier, because the easier you can make your physicians' lives, the more engaged they're going to be with you. And so the next piece of that is going to be about data accessibility. How can we make sure that this wonderful data set that we're putting together is going to be accessible in multiple ways, so that as our strategy evolves and our tactics change, that we can get access to this information in a multiplicity of ways. So the other part of this process is, so when you're thinking about the process side, making things easier on your doctors, ask yourself the question: do we have a way for physicians to make changes to their data sets, and what are they? Is there some sort of a self-update process? Is it like a physician portal, like many credentialing or call center softwares have? Or is it more of a automated self-update system like the one that Connect Healthcare has? Do we have primarily paper-based processes? And how fragmented are they? So if a physician needs to make a change to multiple different data sets, do they have to reach out to 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different people? Are they being asked for updates on the same information from multiple people? So how do we make that process much more streamlined so that the doctor has one place to go? So that's another component of this. And ultimately, it gets down to the management side of what you want. So this comes down to understanding, are you trying to measure true return on investment? Are you trying to get down to revenues so you can see admissions 18 to 24 months later and be able to tie those back to conversions that happen on your profiles? Are you looking at benchmarking? So you're trying to figure out, how are we doing comparatively to other organizations using some metric for that? So like the benchmarking tool that we have, or other products that may be out there. Google Analytics is a great tool to be able to measure the leading indicators. So things like traffic, time on site, bounce rate, those kinds of things are really good. Or you may have other things, heat maps, things like that, that you can actually use to make sure that the site is working the way that you want it to, and you're actually engaging your users. So the question then comes down to, how do I make sure that I'm dealing with the physician's needs? Because the physicians ultimately want to be able to help get and keep patients. That's what they need. The consumer needs to have information to answer the questions that they've got to be able to choose the right provider for them. And all of this comes together in a profile that performs well. And of course, then the data accessibility comes into play, and how you use that data for third-party sites, microsites, practice sites, other places where you're going to do social media campaigns, whatever it may be. How do I get access to that information, integrating it throughout your site so that you have multiple points of pointing at, or multiple inlets for the data to be able to point back to the directory. And then of course, how you're measuring the results like we talked about. So ultimately, what you're trying to do is make sure that you're keeping the patient in the middle of your decision thought process while you make things easier for the physician and ultimately get the results you want. So hopefully that's helpful, and we'll see you next time.